our first panel of the evening, titled Redefining the CHRO, Cultivating Connections in a Diverse World. This panel will explore how the role of the Chief Human Resources Officer is evolving, changing, from navigating diverse workplaces to perhaps strengthening human connections and leading with purpose in a rapidly changing world. To moderate this session, I would like to request Neha to please come back on stage. And joining her on this panel are Shashi Kumar, Head of Sales Indeed, Anupam Kaura, Global CHRO Kotak Mahindra Bank, C. Jayakumar, Executive Vice President and Head CHRO L&T, Vikas Modi, Head of Human Resources AU Small Finance Bank, and Prabir Jha, Founder and CEO Prabir Jha People Advisory. Over to you, Neha.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time today. And this is a discussion that everyone is looking forward to. Everyone wants to know what does it take to adapt to the new workplaces that are in vogue, and how do you design policies that can cater to the changing demands of the market. Let me start with you, Prabir. We were speaking before, and you mentioned that, in your words, you've been there, you've seen everything, and you've done everything. So tell me, now that you've had a ringside view and now you can take a step back and look at what's happening, what do you see is the response of many HR managers to the changing dynamics in the market when it comes to catering to the disruption we are seeing? And also, how do you cater to a workforce that is increasingly versatile and also very aware of their rights? How do you cater to an audience that now has complete understanding of their rights and is also very aspirational?
So this can, if I've answered it right, this can qualify me for a PhD, right? Because you've asked so many questions,
Because you said that you have
Yes.
a very rich experience, and I think you'll be best to answer all of it.
I'll keep it as simple so that, it gets the conversation. See, I think a lot of it is to do with anticipation. I think particularly for HR leaders, since the conference is focused on talent and HR leaders, I personally think that the ability, the interest to visualize, anticipate is non-negotiable. And this covers all spectrum, from technology to meta trends in society, economics, geopolitics, which is a tall order because conventionally, forget HR, even business leaders are not fully adept at being able to, and I see this because I've also been a civil servant and I've been in the corporate, they are not able to see the macro trends as well. So there's an intellectual, cerebral curiosity which is needed for you to anticipate and therefore frame issues better. So that's the first bundle that I would like to leave. The second is the ability to understand that, we are living with stakeholders who are not homogeneous anymore. Not only in their own groups, but even intra-groups. I personally believe the world is going to get more and more atomized, personalized in their demands, in their triggers, and good HR leaders will have no option but to start reimagining, howsoever difficult it may be, beyond routine policies, across the board swipes, doesn't work and will not work. So that's the second dimension. So how well are you able to dice and slice the salami? And the third thing is, ultimately it's about influence and inspiration. And because I presume, except for some stalwarts here, most people are from the HR community, I can tell you that as a function, it's not a function which has a lot of power, contrary to the image that sometimes even HR cultivates. It has no authority. But HR is one function, and I speak from personal experience, which has disproportionate influence. So if you're the right guy, the influence, the ability to shape the thinking and doing of a corporation or an industry is huge. But you do not slice it only in terms of standard employees and standard, because I also have a very different view about what HR, the agenda is. So how well will you actually be preparing yourself to be influencing and inspiring a very complex set of stakeholders who will continue to be under pressure, who will continue to be footloose, and who will continue to believe, and my favorite line always has been, HR is an agenda from the doorman to the chairman. Everyone believes they have the best expertise for it, right? So that's the nature of the beast. Through all of that, how do you weave it to a strategic outcome for the organization and its people?
To take your point forward, I want to come to you, Dr. Jayakumar, and you have experience of working with multiple generations in the same organization, and at L&T, there are people who have been there for decades now. Tell me a bit about, to take the point forward about the influence you exert as the CHRO. How are you trying to influence management strategies, HR strategies that address the many challenges Prabir spoke about?
Thank you. First of all, thanks to Forbes and Indeed for inviting me for this panel discussion. Happy to be here. Today, we are in a situation where any CEO, at the middle of the night, you wake him up and ask him, one thing which is troubling you, he will say talent. You ask three things, he will say talent, talent, talent. It is leadership talent. It is the leadership pipeline. That is the biggest challenge. How to get the right person, groom them, retain them, and take them forward. That's the biggest challenge. What you have to look at is, forget about generations now. We will look at the EVPs, employee value proposition. First and foremost is the purpose and pride. When I come to the job, I feel that I'm doing something which is, I like it, which is important, and I am proud to go and tell outside that I am in this organization doing this job. If you can click that, 50% of your thing is done. Second is, are you able to, today generations or anybody wants to learn more, do big things, achieve more, can you provide challenging assignments to them? Not the repeated thing. We have to give one after the other, give stretched responsibilities. People don't shrink, they will do it, giving challenging assignment. Third is, am I learning every year? Every year if I stand back and turn and see, am I the same CJK or I am CJK plus one? I will learn something on this job. This is the third thing which will do. Pride and purpose. Then you provide the challenging assignment, learning opportunities. Then you can add all other factors like, am I working in the latest technology, whether I am, they also every time, they may not leave the organization, but every person will be ensuring his market value. I mean, today here, if I leave, what will be, he may not leave the organization, but he always looks at that. That means compared to last year, in terms of domain, in terms of experience, in terms of expertise, am I growing? If we can provide such opportunities, people will perform well and we can retain them also. This is my initial thoughts.
Vikas, to come to you, he said that good talent is scarce. Do you agree? If yes, then why is talent scarce? Because if you look at statistics, there are so many MBA graduates in India who are not just going abroad to study, but they want to stay in India, and we don't see the brain drain problem we saw earlier as much. It's not as severe. What do you think contributes to the scarcity of talent?
So, I would not believe there is a scarcity of talent in this country as such. It's that how do you bind the talent to your thought process which you are trying to propagate as an institution, right? And I would borrow from what Dr. Jayakumar mentioned, and I would slightly extend it. He mentioned purpose and pride. I would rather say purpose, pride, and respect. So I think these are the three elements which possibly bind talent to your particular thought process. And to extend to what my good friend here, Mr. Prabir Jha mentioned, HR today needs to influence. Influence what? Influence outcomes. I think that's what is more critical. And how do you influence outcomes? The core to that influencing outcome is being a credible function, being a credible individual. And that credibility will only take HR forward from here. I'll come back to, as we go along, how do we go along as the more granular aspects of how technology is changing and shaping the way we work. But to the initial thoughts which you asked, Neha, this is what I had to submit.
So trust is important, respect is as important. Anupam, let me bring you into the conversation at this point. Kotak Mahindra Bank has often spoken about how it wants to accelerate change. It wants to embrace digital banking. So tell me, how do you preserve a sense of stability and trust among stakeholders, especially employees, while you are pushing for agility and innovation?
I think that's a great question, and I'm glad I'm here today, thanks to Forbes India Indeed. I'd say the following. I think to all the fellow panelists who've made their point of views heard, I'd say that at the end of the day, it's important to identify the goodness and strength that people in-house today have and channelize that early on in the journey of transformation and change. So given where we were a couple of years back and what we embarked on, that is exactly what we did. We skipped a few levels. We cherry-picked high-performing talent at that level. We got them engaged to co-create the agenda along with us so that there is far, far greater ownership. In addition to that, what we also did is we made sure that there is an active communication and outreach around it. To the point that Prabir also made, it's not just anticipation, but it's equally influence. Influence happens if you take people along, if they understand why this is important, how is it going to impact their lives, how is it going to allow personal progress along with organization progress. So some of those things specifically early on, if they are addressed, if you get them co-opted as part of the change journey, if you show them how we are channeling your strengths as part of the transformation agenda, and on a timely basis, you supplement it at some level of cross-skilling on areas where you believe there are white spaces. That can, if you ask me, form a very, very powerful combination, and that's exactly what we did.
Shashi, let me bring you into the conversation now. You heard our panelists, and you constantly interact with CHROs from different sectors, from different industries, and you have a good grasp of the business trends. Tell me a bit about what is the conversation. Since you have your ears to the ground, how are companies looking to attract talent? What is the thinking now in an age of disruption, in an age where Gen Z has a very different set of demands compared to, say, the earlier workforce? How are you interacting with CHROs, and what is your guidance to them?
I don't presume to offer guidance to CHROs, but I'll just give you my observation. And really, my observations will start with what people in this panel have said, and we'll sort of try and build over that. I think Dr. Jha started by talking about what all HR as an industry does, therefore what CHROs sort of oversee. But most of my conversation tends to be around talent, given what my company does. So I'll speak around that lens. Neha, when you started off, you said there is a lot of disruption, change in the way job is done, change in the skills that are required. And like Rohan said in his presentation, the job posting is out there, and even before it goes out, the kind of skills required change. So I think one of the things that CHROs really sort of try and do today is deal with that change. And today, while change has been common or constant across, we're dealing with a significant amount of change in the last couple of years. AI is real. And when that change happens, skills needed to do the same job is now different. So defining what that different looks like is something which I feel CHROs should look to do. And once they've defined that, how do you go out there and attract talent? I think Dr. Jayakumar touched on EVPs. How do you build EVPs, and how do you get EVPs to speak to the talent pool that you're looking to attract? Now, EVP, and by its extension, employer brand, is not something that's in presentation decks presented to boards. It's a lived experience. And today, with social media, with sites like Glassdoor, Indeed, people are talking about what that lived experience looks like. So how do you ensure there's continuity? How do you ensure what a company defines as its EVP, what the company speaks about as an employer brand, is not very different from what potential employees and current employees and job seekers are talking about when they're coming out there and talking about things on media. The second thing is trust. A lot of companies talk about employee benefits. They talk about a lot of things that companies offer when there is this sort of coating of job seekers going on. But a lot of people believe, and the Indeed YouGov survey said 61% of employees believe a lot of what is offered as part of employer benefits are actually performative and they're not real. That's 1.5 to 1.7 times more than what it is across the world. So really, I think the CHROs, one core thing which I think CHROs can do is build back that trust. And that's I think, the basic or the place to start.
Prabir, also culture is basic in an organization, a cornerstone, in fact. Tell me a bit about how an organization builds culture in practice and not just in theory. Also, since you have worked in different industries and you have a fair sense of what the business trends in those markets are, how do you balance profitability also by ensuring that your workforce is such where good talent is retained? And what does it take to retain good talent?
So, even in your question, if I may, I see this binary divide that culture is a different animal and profitability and business is another.
That's how we take it in practice.
This is where you drop the ball. Culture is always a strategic choice to what your business aspirations and business challenges are. It's not just about being nice to people and free ice cream and,
the perks and benefits
don't.
don't.
It's and even HR guys, I'll be honest, they have trivialized it. So if you feel culture is about Rangoli contest, then culture will be only Rangoli contest, right? It needs a little bit more of strategic step back and understand. So I at least describe culture as the way individually and collectively people in an organization think, relate, do, behave, experience, deliver product, service experiences. But the operating word for me is think. And that is where the biggest gap is. And I love the word that I'm hearing from a lot of my co-panelists is trust. If you ask me the biggest thing which is at stake today, which is destructive of culture in every sense, is trust. For example, it is just not about being nice to people. I advise a lot of companies in my new life. And one of the big things I find is there are many companies which are low accountability cultures. Now, sometimes I have to tell the promoters or the leadership that, you guys are acting as saints. You're not Santa Claus in town, right? So that is back to that issue of deciding what is that culture which is going to deliver you your strategic outcome. If your accountability is low, it's not going to work. If it is about respect for people, of course, it's not going to work. If the culture is about valuing entrepreneurial ability. So these are hardcore business calls. And I think then you weave within that some of the smaller sections. The practice of it, why it falls is because all of these are done beautifully in town halls. We all talk the talk. That's not the problem with leaders in anywhere in the world I have seen. The problem is about playing it out. Who do you hire? Who do you promote? Who do you acknowledge? Right? At the end of the day, if you say, I will, for me, loyalty is defined in number of years in the company. You've lost the plot of attracting the best talent because the best talent are not going to spend 30 years with you. Don't even chase that aspiration. It's not even worth it, right? So, it has to be very sharp and every bit, the soft and the hard part of your ecosystem has to be re-engineered, which is tough because many companies say, but Prabir, this will happen. Oh, what if this guy feels bad? This guy will leave. So, they are so scared. So, for me, the challenge is preaching from the pulpit is very easy. The execution of that on the shop floor is where the penny is dropping. That has to be bridged.
So the execution is actually where all the focus should be. So coming to you, Dr. Jayakumar, tell me a bit about everything that Prabir spoke about. In practice, how do you build culture? How do you imbibe many of the strategies that Prabir stressed upon to ensure that you have a dynamic and a talented workforce?
Thank you very much. During Prabir was speaking, I was only thinking, luckily she didn't introduce that CJK has worked 37 years in L&T. he spoke, very, very relevant. Certain things I would like to add is, culture should also align with the business objectives. Okay? When you talk about IBM, if you talk about the Post-it, they talk about innovation. Toyota, quality, in terms of FedEx, speed. So that should also get aligned. Second thing is, we touched upon as a culture is what people see, do, and hear when you enter. It is not put in boards that this is our culture. When you're talking about trust, transparency, etc., irrespective of all the levels, irrespective of whether it is any generation of people, we have process, but how it is implemented. Okay? Anybody for that matter, he looks at, why am I here in this organization? First, what am I expected to do? Whether I'm getting a very candid, relevant feedback on a day-to-day basis. So this is fundamental things of a person which he looks at when he looks at in the organization. As he said, it is not doing a Rangoli contribution and all those things to build in engagement. And whether my boss is really interested in me, and if I continue here, whether there's a career growth. So these aspects should go into the core of the HR part of it. Then there will be engagement, there will be retention, there will be growth. Any additional thing you wanted to ask?
You answered my question.
Thank you.
Coming to you, Anupam, there is a fear generally that if you're 45 plus in an age of AI, finding a job is very difficult. Reskilling is something that is often spoken about. Tell me a bit, at Kotak Mahindra Bank, how do you address this fear that has kind of accelerated more so after COVID? Tell me a bit about the recruitment strategies you want to shape at Kotak Mahindra Bank to ensure that recruitments are across age groups and not just college graduates. So how important is experience and how important is freshness in the workforce?
I think it's a very, very thoughtful question. And but I would say that maybe if you would have asked this question to somebody from a new age setup, you would have got a very different answer.
I
maybe somebody
yes.
like him or his colleague sitting out there.
I'm not new age.
No, talk about the new age setup, not you, right? Maybe your hairs are more grey than mine, right? So I can make that out. But okay, jokes apart, I'd say the following. For anybody in banking, given the sheer expanse of regulations, the circulars, just last Friday we had something called a master directions again released by the regulator. I would say if somebody says that just skill set and will alone is a good substitute for the vastness of know-how and experience that somebody needs in banking, the person is sadly mistaken. The conundrum or the challenge on the contrary is, over the years, banking as a sector has had a lot of talent portability, and as a result of which, talent erosion, talent drain. So for me, 45, for all practical purposes, can be the new 25 in that sense, right? Or the other way around. I would say, coming to your second part of the question on, therefore, recruitment strategy, I think the biggest advantage any organization of our scale can leverage is their human capital, in terms of making sure that we are able to leverage the employee network as a big base and a talent magnet in itself, right? Getting people through that channel is one big area. The other channel I would say is clearly social media, job boards. All of that is again a very, very big one. 2 or 3 specific approaches that we believe will remain relevant, at least for a sector like ours. You need a good blend of people cutting across different generations, cutting across different experience bands, age bands, diversity of background, diversity of thought, and so on and so forth, all included. You also need increasingly a good blend of people who are able to understand the point of intersection of banking and technology, data science and analytics, and people who overall, as an evolution process, have been through change. That brings a lot of resilience, right? So overall, therefore, it's a very vast canvas. For somebody to say that people at the age of 45 will necessarily bring it all, I think it's a myth. That will not happen.
So you are saying that you need a good mix.
Absolutely.
Can I add on to that?
Sure,
Please
sure.
do.
So, thank you, Anupam. And it's good to have a banker. Last time when I was on a panel, I was the only banker on the panel. So, it's relevant. So, I'll add on to what Anupam was mentioning. So, diversity from here on, how we have started saying is that it's not only gender diversity. So, we have started measuring diversity in multiple manners, different forms, like age diversity, as Neha was pointing out, as social strata diversity, right? So we are trying to focus on recruitment from all these diverse segments of population which this country has. So that's the part one of the question. Second is, will technology disrupt the skill sets? I was speaking to somebody else, and somebody was said that person was telling me that skill sets will get commoditized going forward. I necessarily do not believe that, but what will happen is skill sets will not remain specialized going forward. It will become agnostic. That's my view. How many of us have started using ChatGPT? Your skill sets, because of the use of those AI tools, will become diminished from an extent of that specialization. So, from an HR perspective, what we have started doing is that how do you train people to be multi-skilled? How do you make roles which are more fungible? How do you make transition from one part of the bank to other part of the bank more feasible? So these are certain things which we are currently working on and bothered about.
You touched upon something very interesting, and at this point I would like a show of hands. If the HR leaders here in the audience could raise their hands, and if you agree that you do use AI in many of your hiring strategies to select good talent. Wow. What is your advice, Shashi, when it comes to using artificial intelligence? What are you seeing actually happening on ground? And how can artificial intelligence in hiring not just be based on algorithms, but be more empathetic and have more, and not just to be generalized, so to say?
So empathy has to come from humans. It can't come from artificial intelligence. But artificial intelligence does solve for real problems in hiring. And I think the biggest problem that artificial intelligence is solving today is the problem of matching. Rohan, when he came up, he spoke about a YouGov survey that said about 58% of employers feel that they don't have access to the right talent. And on the other hand, 43 or 44% of the job seekers felt that, I'm applying for jobs, nobody's seeing me. So clearly there's a major problem as far as matching is concerned. So I think today it's not something for the future, but today we have solutions that help solve for that, both for the job seekers and for the employers. Speaking specifically about Indeed, again, Rohan touched on it briefly, Talent Scout. Today I've spent more than 20 years in sales. I believe I can still work for another 10, but I'm tired of sales. I want to do something else. Do I have skills that can help me do some other job? How can I, figure out what jobs I can do based on the skills I have? Now, once I get those jobs, is there something more I need to do from a learning standpoint to be better qualified? And finally, which job should I apply for? So on the job seekers end, you'll see AI helping solve for that. At an employer end, there are multiple things. I mean, we've had access to, for ages to job boards and search, etc., where you searched and you would find the best possible CV, which you feel is the right fit for the job you've got, but that candidate doesn't want to speak to you. So how does AI will help us identify multiple signals so that you are able to find out which is the right job seeker for the job you have and is also willing to engage with you. So I believe that's the fundamental problem in recruitment that AI is already solving for, but who knows what the future holds. I think there is a huge possibility of many problems getting solved.
Do you face the issue of bias when artificial intelligence is being used to, slice and dice many of the resumes or many of the candidates who could be good options for the role?
Bias is real, but at a company like Indeed, which is committed to responsible AI, we do our utmost best using technology to help reduce bias and almost eliminate it, at least from the extent to which we help our customers use our products which are based on AI.
Also,
See,
yes,
Adam,
please.
certain interesting points he said. One is when the show of hands was there, almost everybody lifted. But everybody is in a different level. Okay, when you say usage of AI, somebody is out and out gone and said. And another caution is things are changing so fast. Okay, so we did all exercise with one of the top 5 consultants. Resumes, automatically scanning, track ranking, and then the first level of interview, understanding the JD, everything is done. We were about to launch, and I was so happy. And I have some interest in AI and other things. I do some programs. I found one interesting website, application called cluely.ai. If you log in through that, it allows you to log in through Teams, Google, or your Zoom. You log in through that, you enter that, and you attend an interview. The person asks a question that generative AI, ChatGPT understands the question, searches the website, and it gives the answer on the screen. All your effort has gone. I thought, what am I doing in this? So if you are one step ahead, there again one step more. You can even ask the candidate, what is the height of Liberty Statue? You will tell immediately. Because it's so that is one. One more point is regarding empathy. I slightly disagree, sir. I had incidents, technical incidents where even before the incident, if you have a bot, you tell, if you take a generative AI, give some prompt telling that you are a high level person with the wisdom, you have high emotional intelligence, you are most empathetic person, all context you give, and start conversing with that. It will be so empathetic. The way it converses, it will beat everybody of us. I had one real-time incident. One of my learning and development head was interacting with a professor of a foreign university. I don't know the name of the university. We planned everything, then they sent the course, the schedule for that, and saw the faculty name. Somewhere, some people were not a PhD. So our friend should have taken it properly. He wrote a mail telling that we want all PhD and doctorate for the as a faculty. Most of that hurt the person very much. Because they are all seasoned faculty, they may not have been PhD, they have been teaching. So they gave a letter in such a manner that they were not interested in continuing also. So he came to me, I said, what is this? Yeah. Then he said, oh, no, I will write a mail. And so he drafted a mail and brought it to me and saw. I said, if you send this, he will never come back to L&T. So in front of him, I opened ChatGPT. I narrated the entire incident. This is with the professor, this is up, and now I wanted to get him back on this. What a lovely letter he drafted. He sent that letter. Next moment, the reply also came. We will be happy to continue with another set of it. So empathy can be built in if you use it properly.
Empathy can be built in. Have you had any experiences in your hiring while using artificial intelligence that you'd like to talk about?
So whatever tools we have used till date, and obviously since Indeed is hosting it, I'll not name those tools. Shashi will not offer me dinner after that. So jokes aside, these tools, and I'll borrow from, and CJK, please do correct me. There's a L&T used to call it MAFA syndrome. Please do correct me. MAFA syndrome is mistaking articulation for achievement. So to a certain extent, the AI tools do believe in that. If you are smart enough and you have used the right words in your resume or your application, you're good to be picked up. Your stack ranking improves, right? Most of the tools are like that. Correct me, Shashi, if I'm wrong. However, should we write it off? The answer is no. The tools, the more you use it, the better results they throw over a period of time. Because they intuitively try to understand what is your requirement. So to that extent, I think it is time to marry both the human intelligence, which we all carry as HR professionals, and with the artificial intelligence which these products build in for us. I think it will be a win-win scenario for all of us.
Sir, today I lost the confidence on stack ranking. Because earlier I was very fascinated by that. Today what is happening is the candidate first puts the JD into the chat GPT. Then he puts his resume inside. Then he says, prepare a resume accordingly. So then you put it for generative AI, the stack ranking will be 100%.
Interesting. To wrap the conversation very quickly, I have a question for each of you here. Tell me a bit about how do you think the role of the CHRO will change in the next 5 to 6 years? Maybe 5 to 6 years is also a long time horizon to take, but just for the sake of it, how do you think your role is going to change in 5 years? Coming to you first, Mr. Jayakumar.
He should be highly tech savvy, empathetic, both the aspect, and he should focus on two things to develop talent. One is learning agility. He should ensure that learning agility is there across the people so that things are changing, they can learn. Second is critical thinking, because he should know what to learn. So many things are there. So learning agility and critical thinking are things which the future HR leaders have to focus, and he himself should be tech savvy and he should be adaptive to change.
Anupam, how do you think the role of the CHRO will change in 5 to 6 years?
I mean, I'd say that a lot of what we've spoken about today and what I earlier touched upon in the context of the question you asked earlier on, the generations and weaving in people around the multi-generational aspect, I think that will come in the ask a lot more. And today, to what Prabir also referred to, the cultural narrative of what HR stands for, the CHRO has a holy altar responsibility on that to be able to architect it and steer it in the right direction. That is one. Second, I would say increasingly, and this is a realization that is getting into startups, fintechs, new age tech companies as well, the entire productivity challenge is for real, right? And if CHROs have to have that credibility for the function, they need to understand business as well. They need to serve as business leaders. So these two things, fundamentally speaking, will be in the calling in a big way.
Prabir, how do you think the role is going to evolve next 5 years?
See, I've been a rebel. So maybe it will not happen, but for some years I've been saying this. HR as a function first will shrink. And it should shrink. Right?
Fewer Rangoli competitions and
many.
all of that.
I mean, even for that matter, recruitment. Why should it be an HR job? Right? So to me, I believe the CHRO will be a strategy function. He will be a strategy leader. His or her ability should be able to envision, visualize business, where is it going, challenges, see the interconnects between the inside and the outside, and should be able to weave in a network of new age opportunities where companies do not spend their time doing a lot of the routine within. I mean, smart companies don't need to have, there was a time I had 1,000 people in HR, honestly today, if I had to do it, I would feel 100 good guys are more than enough. Because you can, so I think the major shift should be, not will be, it should become a very strategy anchored function, and strategy will subsume every dimension, of economics, technology, etc. You don't have to be an expert. The only other thing which I will want to still talk old school, one of the things I will be honest, which HR also has lost out on, and a lot of line managers definitely have lost out on in many, many companies, and we use that word empathy, human touch. It's a shame. I would like to see that get back. How many CHROs are able to wade or walk into their people, are able to actually touch and feel? And when I listen to people now that I'm seeing it from the outside, people feel a lot of indifference. It's not about the pomp and show of the town hall or rewards nights and stuff like that. It's just that touch and feel. And if you don't role model it right, you do not have the moral right to expect a line manager to behave that way. So two things. Definitely a more strategic anchoring and a more human leadership and role modeling. If these two things are able to do right, I think CHROs have a job for themselves.
Vikas?
I was slightly radical thought on this. as technology embeds over the next 5 years, and each of the institutions, organizations adopt the technology in different forms, they would want to do disruption, because this technology which is happening now is a disruptor. So if there is disruption in the organization, the dependence will be on the CHRO to be the chief disruption officer. And that is where the convergence will happen, as Prabir was mentioning, that will be the pivot around which the entire institution will operate. And that will be the HR function will be the fulcrum of that. I previously mentioned that there will be a fungibility of skills. So what are the skills which will be fungible? I think technology, HR, and marketing are some skills which I see getting fungible going forward. Why do I say that? And I don't mention it very lightly, please don't get me wrong. HR folks don't sell just jobs. They sell dreams and careers, right? The product guy sells product and services. So till such time you are able to pitch in the right manner to the world outside, I think that's where the HR function will evolve into.
Shashi, you have the final word. Against a very disruptive backdrop, you heard the panelists as well. How do you think the new age CHRO needs to use artificial intelligence to achieve many of the goals and outcomes that would be desirable in a very disruptive environment?
So obviously there are use cases today, and that's going to evolve as we go by. And really, I think most of the people here have said how that role is going to look like. But what I'd just like to touch on is what Prabir spoke about, empathy and bringing the human connection. I think Leena Nair, who's now the CEO of Chanel, and she incidentally was CHRO at HUL in India, she says she can name 35,000 of her employees, and she wants to get to the last 10,000. I think if CHROs can produce leaders, either from within or from without, people who can identify 35,000 of their employees by name and face, I think CHROs would have done the job.
Indeed. So a mix of empathy, trust, and of course the use of artificial intelligence, which will only get more embedded in systems in the days to come. We do hope that we'll be able to achieve many of the outcomes we spoke about for desirable impact. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being with us here today, joining us and sharing your views. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.